Aloha, folks, and welcome to this edition of Five Questions, conversation that airs right here on News Radio 830 KHVH and also appears on the homepage of HawaiiReporter.com. My name is Rick Hamada. You know what? It is a pleasure to welcome into studio with us Mr. Horace Cooper. He's the adjunct fellow with the National Center for Public Policy Research. And first of all, Horace, welcome to the studio, and aloha to you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me in your studio in person. I was really looking forward to the opportunity to come in.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, listen, time is always valuable, so let's jump right on in. As the name implies, it is 5 questions. Understand that you have had the opportunity to serve with President Bush. I'd love to know the story of how your relationship association came about and just your take on George W. Bush, please.
Well, one of the first things that I will tell you about President Bush is that he took his responsibilities extremely seriously. He was very measured. He was a very deliberate individual. He was much more concerned about getting it right than he was concerned about getting credit. He was the kind of a guy that many people in Texas see as neighbors, people who want to do right. They understand their duty. They stand up for what they see are the right things, and they go forward with it. He wasn't so gifted in rhetoric. He wasn't such a smooth talker, but what he did say were the kinds of things that people could see were clear, unequivocal. I had occasion to go to Europe in representing the Bush administration, and the president had given a speech in which he talked about the importance of making it clear to people who aid al-Qaeda or people who sympathize with al-Qaeda that this administration would not tolerate it. And he said, to quote, if you aid a terrorist, if you assist a terrorist, if you are part with a terrorist, we're going to come after you. And the French asked me, well, what exactly does he mean? Does he mean that we're going to discuss things with him? And I said, no, I think he's been pretty clear about what it is he wants to do. They're not going to abide or tolerate any more attacks on the United States, and they're also not going to abide or tolerate people who work with the kinds of people who attack the United States. It's as clear as we can make it, and that means that if they have to capture you, if they have to kidnap you, if whatever they're going to do to deter you, he's willing to do that, and it's as clear as he can make it.
Which years did you serve with President Bush?
From 2001 through 2005. I actually came in right after September 11th.
I was just going to ask if you could relate to us, the tone and tenor of the administration and President Bush specifically.
Well, the election that had occurred in 2000 got off to somewhat of a bad start because of the issues over what happened in Florida, and the president had initially been dealing with a dispute with the Chinese government over one of our planes going down and whether they had shot it down or not. And there was this idea that the media was starting that this president wasn't going to be serious because he didn't have over-the-top rhetoric when it came time to deal with the Chinese leadership. And privately, the administration was saying, look, if we can sit down and have a quick chat and get this resolved, let's have a quick chat and get it resolved. For folks, and the president loved the term folks, for folks that you couldn't have a quick chat and get it resolved, then you had to use a really, really big stick. What we saw after September 11th was a president who said, these are not people who you can sit down and have a quick chat with. You're going to have to root it out completely and totally. So I came in October 2011 with my director. I was deputy director. His name was Bob Riley, and we were asked to help turn the Voice of America into an organization that promoted America's interest and explained why this war on terror had been embarked upon and what the consequences were likely to be worldwide.
Right. You were serving as chief of staff, I believe. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. It's an intriguing part of our history, and the stewardship under President Bush's very firm hand, which really propelled him in the eyes of Americans as being the right man at the right time. I don't think there was any dispute about that. The machinations that took place, and then, of course, the devolvement of politics and all of that aside, but your thoughts too.
Well, a steady hand was really, really what was needed. A decisive hand as well. People don't realize, and I want to turn just briefly back to that summer before September 11th. The president's poll numbers actually weren't looking so good. He was below 50%, and people thought that maybe this was a presidency that might get off with a stumble and maybe never recover. This particular event was an opportunity that this president had to show he had leadership, that he understood how to respond both to the needs of the American people, how to get this economy back on track, and also how to tell the people and individuals responsible that they were going to be held accountable. What he didn't care about was polls. What he didn't care about was how popular he was going to be or how unpopular he was going to be. He started with executive orders. He started with measures that he brought before Congress, and he simply said, this is the right thing to do, and I'm going to leave it for you to decide whether you're going to follow or whether you're going to get in the way. But what I'm not going to do is sit back and play political games. The time for political games is over. And you could watch, there's about a 2.5-year period where this president took action after action after action that was very deliberate, very careful, and it had the effect of making what happened ultimately was that we never would get attacked again while this president was sitting in office.
It must have been discomforting to see what had happened subsequent, though, where the president's popularity had, because of exactly what you described. Then the whole question about WMDs, then the whole question about our entree into the war, and then the other side with a really a vicious voice rising up. What was going through your mind witnessing the president during this period? What was your reaction?
Well, I have been and maintain a view that, when you're dealing with the kind of brutal dictatorship that Saddam Hussein operated, if he wanted to be a person you could sit down and chat with, he had ample opportunity for us to do the sit down and chat. Instead, he operated torture chambers. Instead, he used weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, on his neighbors and on even some of his own people. This was a guy whose time had come. And the question for us after 9/11 was, do you wait and get 100% guarantee, i.e. they attack you, or do you act before they get a chance to do that? Mr. Hussein had ample opportunity to surrender, to turn over, to allow for a thorough investigation. That was not part of his agenda. I believe today, if you have countries that threaten us and potentially have the ability to hand off to groups like Al-Qaeda weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, even now, Al-Qaeda and its sympathizers are trying for some amazing, messianic, historically relevant attack on us. They're still not done. We just had the CIA intercept another airline bomber who's going to take their shoes and try to blow up a plane before it landed in America. They're not done with us. And there are some in America who don't appreciate that they're not finished. Mr. Bush understood that the mission was to go and root out every single one, get the last man. Till the day he left office, he remained focused on making sure that we could maintain our freedom to come and go, our freedom to dissent, our freedom to argue, critique, whatever we wanted to do. That was maintained because of what he did. You know, all it would have taken is another attack like that of the magnitude of September 11th, and all Americans probably would have simply said, we yield everything. You tell us leaders in Washington where to go, when to go, ration our gas, control the decisions that we need to make and prevent this from happening. Our president, Mr. Bush, made sure that we didn't have to sacrifice all of our freedoms and liberties. What he did was he took stern, direct, and measured steps to see to it that this was not going to happen on his watch.
Just as a side note, in contemporary time, is that the unrest and the terrible scenario in Syria with the Bashar regime, Al Qaeda has been cited as being as incurring,
Yes.
and the armaments that are in the possession of the Syrian government. That's the prize. That's one of the primary prizes. And imagine if that falls into our enemy's hands.
Right, and by the way, on the question of what happened to the weapons of mass destruction, I believe that they had them, and I believe that they've had enough time to ferret them off to places. We're still going to be waiting for that little bit of a prize. Where did they take them, and when will the countries that are holding on to them hand those off to people who are dangerous, people who threaten us? This is why it's important that we maintain a vigilance. This is why we've got to have a defense. The Constitution lists only a few responsibilities for the federal government. Defense is at the top tier of that list. Anybody who says to you, let's just not do so much in this area, let's do some other things that the Constitution doesn't contemplate, doesn't talk about, is endangering our lives and the lives of millions of people all over the planet.
We're talking with Horace Cooper. That was our first question. No, I'm just kidding. I think we're on question 19 right about now, but it's good just to have the chat, and I'm glad that you can relate and put perspective on such an important time in our history. Your background also deals with constitutional law, and I know that on my morning program, we had a brief chat about the Supreme Court. I would like to, for our friends who may be joining us for the first time, pick up on that, and I want to cite two specific decisions that the Supreme Court will be dealing with and get your take. One, of course, the Arizona immigration law and elements of what's called Obamacare or the Affordable Health Act, Healthcare Act. What do you feel on both of these counts now that these two very important questions are before the Supreme Court?
Well, there are two observations that I have, and one is this administration seems to be very insular. The issues associated, the legal questions associated with both of these cases are interesting. They're fun to read, I guess, if you're someone like me, and they're interesting to also think about in terms of how the principles apply. What is so disappointing to me was to see that this administration didn't seem very well prepared. So on the one hand, when the thought that these items were going to go before the Supreme Court came about, because of the insular nature of this administration, media reported back it was a slam dunk. Oh, the courts are going to strike down Arizona, and they're going to uphold the Affordable Care Act. There's not even only a couple of kooky people would think otherwise. But if you look at the merits, there are strong and powerful arguments to be made on Arizona's part about the fact that actually, just as Hawaii requires entrance to its state to fill out documentation to show that they're not going to be bringing in contaminants or things that could be bad for their environment, Hawaii, just like every other state, has a nascent immigration power. They have the right to be concerned about who or what is coming into their jurisdiction. To hear the administration speak, there is absolutely no concurrent authority of a government to be able to regulate the kind of behavior that Arizona says. Real quick, to compare Arizona and New York State. New York State has laws that cover terrorism. They have laws that cover using weapons of mass destruction. They have laws covering conspiracies to operate with people who use weapons of mass destruction. Very few people may be aware that when the New York bomber attempted to blow up a car in Times Square, he wasn't caught by the FBI. He wasn't caught by the CIA. He wasn't caught by any federal entity whatsoever. He was caught by state and local jurisdictions using laws and authority that they have to operate in the confines of their own state. Yes, many of those laws duplicate federal laws. Arizona did almost the same thing. They passed state laws that simply duplicate federal laws, and they said it's a priority for us. It's important to us. So I know it's already a federal law. We're going to devote our time and attention to it. Similarly with the Affordable Care Act, Health Care Act, there are legitimate issues associated with whether or not there are any limits on Congress's commerce power. To hear the administration talk about it, it's a slam dunk. The administration, no Supreme Court would ever strike down landmark legislation like this. How could anyone consider it? When the Solicitor General got a chance to come up and make his arguments, he stumbled. It was embarrassing. Right. And so, from my perspective, my second observation is that this administration appears to be more willing to use these kinds of issues to rally people, to get people excited and ginned up than they are in the actual merits of the arguments that are being made. I believe that's an inappropriate use of the Department of Justice's power. I believe that's an inappropriate use of the Solicitor General and the role of appeals to the Supreme Court. We ought to really believe the arguments that we're making if you're an administration before you bring them forward. You don't keep it all ginned up in the media, get groups divided over it, and then suddenly go, oh, look, we lost. Now that's another argument for us to beat up on Republicans, or another argument for us to beat up on this group because we lost, when there was never really a strong argument to be made to start with.
We have literally just a couple of minutes left, and I want to thank you very much, Horace, for doing this for us. And by the way, your website where folks can contact you directly, please.
www.horacecooper.com. You'll be able to see where I'm traveling and other appearances that I have all across the country.
Excellent. In just a couple of moments, maybe not a fair question, but here at home we're wrestling with a redistricting plan that has gone to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. It's a three-judge decision that'll be rendered. But we have time constraints regarding our constitutionality of when we can have our elections, and also for candidate filing and all of this. We have an issue with voter integrity going on right now in our own state. What's your assessment around the country in regard to our voting process, and how safe, secure, accurate is it?
Well, Project Veritas is an organization that is showing exactly how serious the breaches are. It's extremely important. Some 30 states have acted to make sure that people have to show identification. The federal government has taken the strange position that somehow making sure that it's actually Rick Hamada who shows up to vote, or Horace Cooper who shows up to vote, is voter intimidation. When, if you don't do that, our votes get canceled out by people who we don't know who they are, what their agendas are, and that is not self-government. It is fundamentally wrong, and the Supreme Court has upheld the right of voter ID, but it is fundamentally wrong to limit the ability of people to ensure that real voters make the decisions.
You know what? This has been a great conversation. Hope we can do it again. We'll give a call to each other if that's all right.
Yes, love to.
And your website again, Horace, is?
www.horacecooper.com.
I hope folks will respond, get in touch with you, and we thank you so very much for today.
Thanks for having me on.
This edition of 5 Questions brought to you by KHVH Radio and also HawaiiReporter.com. We thank you so very much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.